Despite its imminent release, we've known almost nothing about Dawn of Wonder. Until now. Victoria 3's new DLC pack is fully on display, and in this video I'm going to take you through all of the features for the latest paid DLC to come to Vic 3. Firstly, it's important to note that Dawn of Wonder releases on the 28th of August 2023. Very, very soon at the time of recording this video, and on the same day that the free 1.4 patch update will roll out, and the next patch after that, 1.5, rolls out in open beta. So, a big day on the 28th of August, but what's it delivering for this paid DLC pack? Let's jump in and take a look at the features as they present them. First up, a core feature for this Dawn of Wonder DLC pack, they say, lies in its day and night cycle. The feature, of course, replaces that sort of static midday sun that previously lit up the map with a customizable cycle of sunlight and moonlight, as you would suggest, as the name on the tin literally says. As the sun sets on your nation, the moon rises, cities and structures will, of course, change. Their city lights will come on, different hues will change depending on your level of research. Coal-powered or gas-lit will look very different to electric light, for example, and you'll also be able to choose at what speed or constant time you want the game to be played. In addition, you can also set the cycle to match your computer clock to further immerse yourself, so it won't just be rapidly flicking through if you're playing on 5 speed in some sort of seizure-inducing madness. We'll have some control over it. And of course, they provide us with some GIFs, relatively low quality, it's just sort of uploaded onto the developer diary and then I'm sort of recapturing it and uploading it, but I think you get the broad idea of what they're showing us here. A day and night cycle in action, allegedly to bring more immersion and of course just in general more flair, a slightly more dynamic feeling to Victoria 3's world. And I gotta give them credit here. If you were looking for a day-night cycle, there are a lot of options inside of this one, so you should be really pleased. You can start on simulation speed. It controls the speed of the day or night cycle, sun and moon movement. By default, the multiplier is set to 10, which means that about 1 minute and 30 seconds in real life time, or 2 months of in-game time at speed 3. The faster the simulation, of course, the faster the day-night cycle, but that's kind of the general idea of how long it'll take, about 1.5 minutes. Or you could choose to use sunlight hours, the amount of hours the sun takes up in one 24-hour cycle of the game, with the remaining hours being night. For example, if the sun hours are set to 23, which you could choose to do, then there'll be 23 hours of daylight and 1 for night. You could also choose to enable, as we mentioned earlier, sync local time, which will match, of course, the full immersion of what's happening outside of your window, if you ever choose to look out there, will be the same as what's happening inside of Victoria 3, matching real sun and sunrise hours, etc. for that 100% immersion rate. There'll also be time of sunrise, what hour the night will end, and the sun will start to rise. That can be selected. And finally, you can enable manual time, letting you set a fixed time perpetually across any day or night period. So if you really just like the look of the map at night, you can set it to that too. And all of the options are demonstrated inside of the new theme selector, which is of course relevant because now there are more than one DLCs, the somewhat controversial Voice of the People DLC, and very soon now a new one, Dawn of Wonder. And inside of here you'll be able to adjust all of the settings that you would expect, what we've just discussed basically, around the time of sunrise, etc, etc. Next up, as you can see on your screen, lighting effects and a new carriage have been introduced. To further accentuate objects and vehicles on the map, they say they've added lights on all of them. From lighthouses to horse carriages, everything's got a light attached. And speaking of those carriages, in order to provide a bit more variety on the map and the roads, they've created a more colourful stagecoach that contrasts the default functional looking one. So if you're after the small cosmetic details that will help to build a slightly more living, breathing world, there's a couple more for you. The lighting effects in particular could be quite cinematic, shall we say, for the map of Victoria 3. In a further attempt to bring more life to the map, they've also added what they call map decoration structures. In other games, like Civilization 6 for example, we might call these wonders, or at the very least, landmarks. They say bringing further life and wonder to the map are 4 new decorative structures, so not a whole load of them. They all have something to do with the sun, moon, and stars. The structures are purely decorative, don't yield any kind of benefit to the country currently occupying them. They will, however, add a bit more flavour to some of the regions in the world, And we get to see all 4 of them here, starting off with the Martand Sun Temple after its near destruction around the 14th century. Then we move through to the Temple of Poseidon. They say a mighty view both at dawn and when the moon is full, so they're kind of leaning into the different lighting effects and overall sort of theme of this cosmetic DLC. Thirdly, the Greenwich Observatory has an animation when it opens up for the night to gaze at the stars. That I think is particularly cool, and inside of a setting that probably demonstrates this DLC a lot better than many of the other things that we've looked at or talked about. And finally, slightly more on the cultural side of wonders, perhaps Wat Arun gives Bangkok a lot more personality and signifies the radiance of the rising sun. And as you can see, they're also adding some new cultural outfits inside of this DLC. They say when it comes to flavor, we wanted also to bring a bit more of that to the pops of the world through cultural outfits for certain regions. These outfits all have some significance relating to the passing of time or the sun and moon, and we'll add some really detailed and ornate designs to otherwise plain clothes of pops at certain periods of time. The images that they've shown us are Hindu pops in India. There's now an outfit related to Diwali, the festival celebrating light's victory over darkness. And for Russia, there's an outfit that not just symbolizes the passing of time and maturity, but also a half-moon-shaped tiara. Nordic and Slavic countries see a dress celebrating the summer solstice, life and love, and last but not least, a costume with many different cultural meanings, and many of them having the character's relation with the moon in focus. And just like we saw with Voice of the People, a new UI skin comes into the game. They say it'll amplify the mood. It sort of blends in with the day-night cycle, dawn and dusk color theme coming through. And of course, as you can see on your screen, it does change the look of Victoria 3 fundamentally. Of course, usually around the edges, except for when it comes maybe to tabs like the politics screen, the budget screen, so on and so forth. And if you're ever not paying attention to the game and instead scrolling right up to the top of your page and looking around the edges, there is a new table and new assets surrounding the game board. They are a nice little touch, of course, and inside of a cosmetic DLC, it would, I suppose, be a bit unusual if that wasn't there. And finally, in this sort of trifecta of map cosmetics, as you would expect, the map paper has changed as well. Or in other words, the background that sits behind the countries inside of the ocean, actually, is really what it is. The map paper is another word for the ocean, and in this case, it's got some funky pictures and designs sewn through it. And to touch back on a feature that we've already introduced, but this one's important because this one's coming as a free feature, whereas the rest have been paid. It's the theme selector. They say they wanted to showcase it because it comes as a free feature. There's a submenu that can be accessed inside of it from the main menu that allows you to easily handle cosmetics once you've got or obtaining to things like this Dawn of Wonder DLC. You can mix and match different elements from different owned packs and the base game, so you could use your French UI, default map paper, assets from the new one. Nice to see that you can mix and match in between. That's actually something that didn't, for whatever reason, really occur to me when I was thinking about how these different cosmetic DLCs play out, and I think that's a very important feature. And that, my friends, concludes what's inside of this Dawn of Wonder DLC. Unlike the previous DLC, which was largely based around France and a cosmetic pack, this one is just cosmetic. No extra characters, no extra journal entries, historical flair, etc. So, how will it face the community? Well, I think ultimately, just like Voice of the People, it will fundamentally come down to a question of price. This is a cosmetic pack, so there'll be lots of different arguments. Some people will think that it should have just been there from the start, should be entirely for free. Others respect the time and work that's probably likely gone into it over quite a period. Regardless of where you sit though, I think it will just be a factor of price, and of course, how much you play Victoria 3. And price is really the only thing that they didn't mention inside of this developer diary, etc., so I'm not quite sure yet where it will be placed, and I haven't laid my hands on the DLC pack itself to try it. So, I will reserve my ultimate judgment until I have it in my grubby little hands, and I'll see you all in the comments below and next time.